The sheets were tangled around my legs, damp from the heat of two bodies pressed together. His breath was heavy against my neck, his hand still gripping my hips as if letting go would make the moment dissolve. My wedding ring, the symbol of vows made before God and family, dug into my skin while his fingers slid across it carelessly. The hotel room smelled of sweat, wine, and betrayal, and in that very second, I knew my husband believed I was at the grocery store picking up milk for the kids' breakfast. That moment, that very second, was the beginning of my undoing. Before I take you deeper into my story, let me pause and appreciate each and every one of you who have clicked on this video. To all my subscribers, I want to say thank you for being the reason this channel keeps growing. To the new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because it truly serves as the fuel and energy that keeps powering this channel forward. Do not forget to engage, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share how the story makes you feel. Your voices matter here. My name is Emily, and I am a 35-year-old woman living in the quiet suburbs of North Carolina. To anyone looking at my life from the outside, it looks like the dream. A big house with white shutters, 2 kids who smile in school pictures, a golden retriever that waits by the door, and a husband who has never once forgotten to kiss me goodnight. His name is David. He is 40, steady, reliable, and the kind of man who plans family road trips with coolers of snacks and playlists of songs that take us back to when we first met. He is the man every woman hopes to marry, the one who holds your hand in church, fixes the broken sink without complaint, and calls you his forever. And I am his forever. At least, that is what he believes. But what forever did not prepare him for was the arrival of Daniel. Daniel was nothing like David. Where David was calm, Daniel was reckless. Where David wore business suits and clean cologne, Daniel had tattoos on his arms and smelled like leather and gasoline. I met him at the gym one humid morning when I was pretending to care about my treadmill pace, and he was lifting weights like he carried the world on his shoulders. His eyes found mine in the mirror, and something shifted in me. Something I thought I had buried after 2 kids and a mortgage. The first time he spoke to me, his voice scraped over me like gravel. He asked me how long I had been training, though we both knew I had no interest in training at all. I laughed too quickly, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and for the first time in years, I felt like a woman who was seen. Not just a wife. Not just a mother. A woman. It did not take long before the flirting turned into late-night messages, and late-night messages turned into coffee dates that had nothing to do with coffee. One reckless afternoon, I told David I was running errands, but instead, I found myself in the passenger seat of Daniel's truck, my hands trembling as he drove us to a motel off the highway. I remember my heart hammering so loud I thought the whole world could hear it. And when the door closed behind us, when his lips crashed against mine, I felt something dangerous ignite inside me. I should have stopped. I should have walked out. But instead, I let it happen. I let him peel away every layer of my self-control, until I was nothing but a woman lying beneath a man who was not my husband, gasping for air between waves of guilt and desire. That night, I went home to David. He was sitting on the couch with our daughter asleep against his chest, the TV flickering in the background. He smiled when he saw me and said, "Hey, forever." I nearly collapsed under the weight of that word. I kissed his forehead gently, tasting the innocence of his trust, while my body still carried the scent of another man. From that moment, my life split into 2. By day, I was David's wife, the mother of his children, the woman who packed lunches and baked cookies for school events. By night, or sometimes, stolen afternoons, I was Daniel's escape, the woman who shed her ring along with her shame the second a motel door locked behind us. The thrill was intoxicating. The danger of it made my heart race, the lies rolled off my tongue smoother with every attempt. I told David I was working late, visiting a friend, running errands, anything that kept suspicion away. And every time I crawled back into our marital bed, my husband would pull me close, whisper that I was his forever, and I would bury my face into his chest to hide the tears of guilt that threatened to expose me. What made it worse was that David never gave me a reason to betray him. He was kind. He was attentive. He still looked at me with the same hunger he had the night of our wedding. But Daniel offered something that felt raw, forbidden, and alive. With him, I was reckless, unchained, desired in a way that made me forget about bills and school schedules. I hated myself for loving it. But even in the fire of passion, guilt was always there, clawing at the back of my mind. Some nights, after being with Daniel, I would lie awake beside David, my heart pounding, my body aching with shame. I wondered what kind of woman cheats on a man who calls her his forever. The answer was staring back at me in the mirror every morning. The double life was exhausting, but it was also addictive. The lies became easier. The sneaking around became a twisted game that I convinced myself I could control. I thought I was too careful, too smart, too untouchable. I believed I could have both, a devoted husband at home and a secret lover on the side. But life has a way of breaking open the things we try to hide. And while I was busy weaving lies, I did not realize that the truth was already tightening its grip around me, waiting for the moment everything would come crashing down. The mornings in my home always looked perfect on the outside. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, our two kids bickered over cereal boxes, and David kissed me before leaving for work in his crisp suit. To our neighbors, we were the family who had it all together, the family people envied in silence. But beneath the routine, I was living a life twisted by lies, where every smile I gave David was painted over with guilt, and every excuse I whispered was another stone added to the wall I was building between us. I had become an expert liar. If there was a skill no one should ever want, it was the ability to betray someone's trust so convincingly that they never thought to question it. I would tell David I was volunteering at the school when I was really in Daniel's truck. I told him I had joined a book club, when in truth, my meetings were hours tangled in motel sheets. I even pretended to join a women's fitness class, using it as the perfect cover for the afternoons Daniel and I spent together. The thrill was dangerous, but it consumed me. Daniel made me feel reckless in ways David never had. He did not want soft words or candlelit dinners. He wanted urgency, he wanted me pressed against walls, breathless and raw. With him, there was no pretense, no responsibility, no roles to play. I was not mom. I was not wife. I was just Emily, and I had forgotten what that felt like. But the more I gave in to Daniel, the more complicated everything became. He started wanting more than just hidden afternoons. He wanted to take me out, to walk with me in public, to have me sit across from him at a restaurant without having to look over our shoulders. He told me he was tired of sneaking around, that I deserved more than lies and secrecy. His words thrilled me, but they also terrified me. Because if Daniel wanted me outside the shadows, then my marriage would no longer be a shield, it would be a cage waiting to shatter. There was one night in particular that still burns in my memory. David had planned a quiet evening at home, just the two of us. He ordered takeout from my favorite restaurant, lit candles in the dining room, and even set our old wedding playlist to play softly in the background. He looked so proud of himself when he poured me a glass of wine and said, "You deserve nights like this. You are my forever." I should have melted in his arms. I should have let that night remind me of everything we had built together. Instead, my phone buzzed on the table. Daniel's name lit up the screen, and my heart dropped into my stomach. I excused myself, rushing to the bathroom to answer his call, while David waited in the other room with that innocent smile. Daniel's voice was impatient. He wanted to see me the next day, and he did not care what excuse I had to make. He said he missed me, that he needed me. My hands shook as I promised him I would find a way. When I returned to the table, David was humming to our wedding song, completely unaware that I had just agreed to betray him again less than 24 hours later. The lies piled up so fast I started to lose track. I had to write them down sometimes, what excuse I gave for which day, who I claimed to be with, which errands I supposedly ran. It was like spinning a web so wide that even I was getting caught in it. Yet, for reasons I could not explain, I craved it. The danger, the secrecy, the split identity, it had become my drug. But the universe has a cruel way of tightening the rope around a liar's neck. One afternoon, I told David I was at the gym. Instead, I was with Daniel in his truck, parked in a secluded lot near the woods. My phone slipped from my bag while we moved in a way that left no space for thought, no room for guilt. Hours later, when I came home, David asked me a simple question. "How was your run?" My heart froze. I had told him I was going for a run, not to the gym. I smiled quickly, masking the panic, and said it was refreshing. He did not press me, but I saw something in his eyes, a flicker of doubt that had never been there before. For days after, I wondered if I had slipped too far. But David never confronted me, never hinted at suspicion. He continued to treat me like the woman he trusted most in the world. That was the cruelest part of it all. His trust was like a mirror I shattered every time I walked out the door to be with Daniel. Then came the moment that nearly destroyed me. One afternoon, while David was at work and the kids were at school, Daniel and I met at the motel. Our time together was reckless, desperate, and fast, as if we knew we were running out of chances. When it was over, I stepped into the bathroom to clean up, and my phone lit up with a message. It was from David. "I cannot wait to surprise you tonight. Do not cook. I made plans for us." My blood turned cold. I stared at myself in the mirror, hair messy, lips swollen, body marked by a man who was not my husband. How could I possibly go home and smile through a surprise dinner after what I had just done? That evening, when I walked into the house, David had the kids at my mother's place, candles lit, and a reservation for us at a new restaurant downtown. He looked at me with such pride, such pure love, and all I could do was smile through the guilt that gnawed at me from the inside out. I told myself I could keep this up, that I was clever enough to live this double life forever. But deep down, I knew the lies were catching up to me. Daniel was pushing for more. David was starting to notice the cracks. And I was slowly drowning in the weight of my own choices. The rope was tightening, and I had no idea just how quickly it was going to strangle me. The day everything came crashing down started like any other. David left for work with his briefcase in one hand and a kiss pressed against my forehead. I packed lunches for the kids, waved goodbye to the school bus, and returned to the silence of the house. But beneath that silence was a storm waiting to rip my life apart. I had grown careless. Lies that once slid easily from my tongue now tangled. My stories no longer matched, my alibis no longer aligned. And Daniel, impatient and reckless, had begun to call at hours that made my heart leap in terror. The tighter I tried to grip the double life I had built, the faster it slipped through my fingers. The unraveling began with a receipt. I had tucked it hastily into my purse after a hurried motel stay with Daniel. A small, wrinkled slip of paper, nothing but a date, a time, and a charge. I had meant to throw it away but forgot. And one evening, while David searched my purse for gum before we left for a family dinner, he found it. When he held it up, his brows furrowed, my blood froze. "What is this, Emily?" My mouth opened, but no words came out. My brain scrambled for an excuse, a half-truth, anything that could explain why his wife had a receipt for a roadside motel. But silence betrayed me, and silence was louder than any confession I could have made. David's face crumbled as if he had just watched his world split in two. He did not shout. He did not curse. He simply stood there, the paper trembling in his hands, his eyes filling with tears he tried to hold back. "Tell me I am wrong," he whispered. "Tell me you would never do this to me." And there it was, the moment I could have chosen to lie again, to spin another web. But guilt had eroded every ounce of strength I had left. My knees buckled, and before I could stop myself, I broke. "I am so sorry, David," I whispered, my voice shaking. "It is true." The silence that followed was worse than any scream. He looked at me as if I were a stranger, as if the woman standing before him was not the wife he had shared a bed with for more than a decade. His hands dropped the receipt as if it burned him, and he walked out the door without another word. That night, he did not come home. The children asked where he was the next morning, and I told them he had gone to visit his brother. The lie tasted bitter, but I could not bring myself to tell them that their mother had shattered the only version of love they had ever known. Days passed in silence. David barely spoke to me, answering questions with short, clipped responses, his eyes avoiding mine. The man who once called me his forever now looked at me as if I were nothing more than a ghost haunting his home. And then came the confrontation I had been dreading. It was late, the kids asleep, the house quiet. David sat across from me at the kitchen table, his hands folded tightly, his jaw clenched. "How long?" His voice was low, steady, but laced with pain. I swallowed hard. "Almost a year." His eyes closed as if the answer stabbed deeper than he expected. He shook his head slowly, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. "I gave you everything, Emily. I loved you with everything I had. You were my forever. And you threw it away for what? For someone who does not even love you?" The truth was, Daniel did not love me. I had begun to see it in the way he pulled away when I spoke about anything serious, in the way he avoided any talk of commitment. I was nothing more than excitement, a distraction from his own empty life. And now that the walls of my marriage were crumbling, Daniel had started to fade like smoke. His calls were less frequent, his tone colder. One night, when I told him I needed him more than ever, his response was blunt. "You knew what this was, Emily. Do not make it more than it is." In that moment, I realized I had destroyed the only real love I had ever known for a man who was never mine to begin with. David did not throw plates. He did not scream or curse. His pain was quieter, heavier, more devastating than rage could ever be. He told me he wanted separation. He packed a bag that night, kissed the children goodbye, and walked out of the door. As I watched his car disappear down the street, my chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I had lost him. I had lost the man who called me his forever, the man who stood by me through every season of life, the man who believed in me even when I no longer believed in myself. And I lost him because I was too weak to close the door on temptation. Now, I sit in the emptiness of a house that feels too big without him. The children ask questions I cannot answer, their innocent faces searching for a truth they are too young to understand. I tell them their father loves them, because that is the only truth left untainted by my betrayal. There is no forgiveness waiting for me in this story. There is no happy ending, no reconciliation, no second chance. I broke forever with my own hands, and forever does not heal once it has been shattered. David will find peace without me. Daniel has already disappeared into the shadows where he belonged. And I am left with silence, regret, and the knowledge that I destroyed the only man who ever truly loved me. My husband thought I was his forever. But forever is gone.